I'm in St Albans in Hertfordshire, where I'm going to have a look at the shrine of Britain's first saint, St Alban. The man named Alban was a Roman Briton thought to have lived in the 3rd or 4th century. We have some fairly shaky record keeping on precisely when, and the best accounts of his life were written by Beda and Gildas, who lived centuries after Alban did. So far, so vague. But let's look at the story of the man who would become Saint Alban. He lived in Roman Britain, but it's not clear which religious faith he followed or whether he was a native Briton. He only really enters the national consciousness as a result of the circumstances surrounding his death. As mentioned, the chroniclers Gildas and Beda wrote about Alban's martyrdom under the Roman ruler Diocletian, although later writers claimed others may have had the dubious honour. The story of Alban's conversion to Christianity appears in Beda's The Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written around 731 AD, and involves his sheltering of a fugitive priest who was later called St Amphibalus. This was at a time when persecution of Christians was growing, and St Amphibalus was said to have taught Alban the tenets of the Christian faith and baptized him. Alban provided clothing to the runaway priest and helped him to escape, with Alban taking the rap by instead claiming to be the wanted clergyman. He was brought before a judge who just then happened to be standing at a pagan sacrificial altar. The judge was furious that Alban had given shelter to the priest, a person who despised and blasphemed the gods. Alban was sentenced to endure all the cruel punishments that were to be meted out to the Christian heretic unless he complied with the pagan rituals of the Roman rulers. A defiant Alban told the judge, "I worship and adore the true and living God who created all things." This sealed his fate, and he was taken to be executed up what is now Holywell Hill in the city of St Albans. There are a couple of legends around the execution itself and its genesis of a sacred spring, which I will get to. Alban was led to his execution, and he and his persecutors came to a fast-flowing river that could not be traversed, believed to be the River Ver. There was a bridge, but a mob had gathered eager to witness the execution and had made the bridge impassable. Apparently, keen to meet his end and the martyrdom it would entail, Alban raised his eyes to heaven and the river dried up, allowing the party to cross over on dry land. The astonished executioner threw down his sword and fell at Alban's feet, moved by divine inspiration and praying that he might either suffer with Alban or be executed in his place. Eventually the group arrived at the top of a gentle hill. It was there that Alban's head was struck off, as well as the head of the refusenik executioner. It was said that immediately after delivering the fatal stroke, the eyes of the second executioner popped out of his head and fell to the ground. According to one mythical account, just prior to his execution, Alban was desperate for a drink, so fell to his knees and prayed. Then a spring appeared to quench his thirst. Another tale states that Alban's severed head rolled down the hill, from close to the site of the current cathedral and abbey church to the bottom of the hill. At the spot where Alban's rolling head came to a final stop, a spring gushed forth. It is highly likely that the particular spring actually had a pre-Christian pagan usage, but the stories of Stuck and pilgrims would subsequently venture to the location. St Alban was adopted at the abbey and a shrine was installed. The spring was also part of Arthurian legend, with Uther Pendragon, father of the mythical King Arthur, said to have had his combat injuries healed by the supposedly sacred waters. And the Benedictine nuns of a nearby nunnery were said to have revered the water, dipping bread into the well, lending it the name Sopwell. This comes from the Old English word sopion, which means dipping bread in liquid. The word has an even older root which alludes to the sop used by the legendary Aeneas in Greek mythology to appease the devil dog guardian of Hades, Cerberus. The grounds on which Sopwell Nunnery existed are today occupied by the ruin of a great Tudor-era house, which replaced the former religious site after Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. The well was long abandoned and thought lost, although the name Holywell Hill kept its ghost alive. But it was preserved thanks to the work of local campaigners as development threatened its existence in the 1980s. Thankfully, the developer was sympathetic to its storied history and restored it. It now stands in a small but largely unknown walled garden. The well was repaired by brickwork and fitted with a protective grille. The water table can still sometimes be seen, especially after heavy rain adding to the water from the River Vere. The cathedral and abbey church of St Alban began construction in 1077, and builders made use of Roman-era bricks from the former settlement of Verulamium. These telltale red stones are still visible in the outer walls of the majestic building to this day. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share and most importantly subscribe, and you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.